actually a month ago we did a trial for my basically I was having a for my work I do a lot of quality check on a lot of data entry, and so I was seeing the repetitive a lot of repetitive errors, and so I came up to him and brought him, hey, I had this problem. Do you think we can automate this? Can we create an LLM or some sort of machine learning that could read uh, this data and then give it an output? And so he was able to create something in partnership with somebody else, and we created a prototype, and it definitely worked. It was something that he basically automated 3 months of work into like a couple seconds of just being able to run the code and just validate the data. And so he's creating something very interesting. He's actually going to be presenting next week here. I'll be sharing the details more so you guys get to come out and get to learn more from him. So and then we also have other members that have other projects going on. We have the Cineverse. This is from Fernando. He's an artist. He's also had the opportunity to present in one of our meetups. And just basically, he's very creative. He's already written books. He has a YouTube channel. He creates music. And so we're helping him basically showcase his brand and get more audience to get to know who he is. So, and then with women in Cleantech and Sustainability, Gabriela Fierro, she's part of the board of that community, and they're the ones who basically sponsored that event that we had 2 weeks ago. And basically, they're a worldwide community, and so through that is how we was also bridge the opportunity to bridge to others to realize in regards to sustainability projects and clean tech. And so, without further ado, I would like to introduce Neil. He's one of the Pilas members as well. He came in early on, and he's definitely dove into the AI space more than I have, and so I want to take the time to just give him the good introduction to yeah.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for showing up today. I know there's a lot of different things you could have been doing with your afternoon today. So first and foremost, I want to say thanks to Code4Y'all for creating this space. Thanks, Julian, for inviting me as a member of Pilas to just talk a little bit about AI, the history of it, and kind of where we're going trajectory-wise. So I'm not going to get like super into the details as far as technical architectures, all of this sort of thing. It's more of like a high level. Here's what the state is. I do want to say this presentation, we're actually not showing the full breadth of it just because we want to condense this into 45-minute session, have Q&A at the end, keep it conversational. But we are going to be sharing the PDF document that's chock full of different links, resources, really helpful tools to get up to speed, practice no code, building your own GPTs, all of that, useful stuff that you can take away and further your own professional careers or just have fun, right? So first, I want to kind of get a gauge for the room. How many people, by show of hands, have used ChatGPT? Okay, so just about every single person in the room. That's good. And so it was about probably like a year and a half ago now that this, ChatGPT craze, this egg hatched, and nobody really knew how much of a roller coaster ride we were going to be on. I think back then it was just GPT, then we had 3, 4, recently it's O1, which is a reasoning model that uses more compute to think about its answer before it output something and to reduce the risk of hallucination, which is something that we will touch on a little bit later, albeit briefly. So this is sort of a meme or a tongue-in-cheek quote that says AI took 80 plus years to become an overnight sensation. Obviously, that's not true. You could actually look at AI as the sum total or even the matrix multiplication of all human knowledge and endeavor in mathematics that has yielded what we now have on our phones. A UX, the ability to ask an LLM question and have it output an answer. But this timeline, starting in 1940, which is really when the first neural network was actually conceptualized, and AI as a term was first coined at the Dartmouth conference. AI meaning artificial intelligence. Before that, artificial intelligence, that didn't mean anything. Intelligence itself is difficult to actually define, right? Like the first time someone tried to define intelligence formally in research was in about 1921. There's a psychologist, right? Intelligence, cognitive psychologist, who said, oh, and intelligence, that's the ability to capture knowledge and knowledge possessed. Well, that's a good definition until you realize, oh, within a library is intelligent, right? So maybe not that. And then someone came up with a few years later, oh, the ability to solve hard problems. Well, then you have to define what is a hard problem, right? So there's these definitions, these words, and ultimately we kind of start to agree or to disagree on what language itself is. And large language models, fast forwarding to the 2020s, has basically passed that Turing test in the sense that when you speak to it, it's more than just a chatbot. We've all used pre-LLM chatbots that you could kind of tell it's a chatbot. But now it's gotten to the point where, a Google engineer was actually laid off for whistleblowing, saying like, hey, this thing is sentient. So, AI took 80 plus years to become an overnight sensation. Actually, not really. In the, 1820s, you had Ada Lovelace and Charles Babbage coming up with the first thinking machine, right, and conceptualizing that. But, to be quite frank in talking about language, the word algorithm actually, that's comes from a Persian philosopher and thinker out of the Baghdad House of Wisdom. So he was a Muslim philosopher named Muhammad al-Khwarizmi. And so the algorithm, that instruction set for, coming up with a way to solve a problem and achieve an output, that's been around since about I think it's like the 800s. So more like 800 years to become a overnight sensation, or even longer. It's a millennial approach, not not something that can just be resigned to our brief snippet of time that we inhabit. And so this is the history of kind of how we think about AI today and these phased approaches. From the 50s through today, there's been the most innovation, right? Some key pivotal research papers that have been published. And it was not always something that people believed could actually get done. So there was an AI winter where basically even a lot of scientists who had once championed it sort of gave up and were resigned to the fact that no innovation had been made from about the 1974 to 1980, and so we call it the AI winter. And this is actually something that has been enabled not just by software innovations but also hardware. So when you think about the computation that's required to actually run these systems, we'll show a little bit about why that's so important, or who the big players are that have captured that space. But AI itself has this kind of nebulous connotation to it, and I think the important thing to realize is AI has been around for quite some time. This recent flavor of the month, which is generative AI, is really just one component of that. So when you think of predictive AI, machine learning, diagnostic AI, something that's really been used for maybe a couple of decades now to assess factory conditions, recommend which wheel on a truck needs to be checked for inspection based on different sensor inputs, or which patient in a hospital system maybe should be triaged and revisited because his symptoms indicate or her symptoms indicate that she might be readmitted later, right? So there's really no industry in which AI is, as a non-generative form, has already kind of like touched in some form or fashion. And really it's based on data. So data is the new gold, digital gold, as they say. And a big component of this is understanding that like your AI performance is really going to only be as good as the data that underpins it. And so why ChatGPT seems to be so smart, borderline sentient, and you're kind of having this, philosophical-esque conversations, is because it's trained with the corpus of basically the entire internet. And that raises some concerns, some questions about privacy and compute cost. Some estimates say that it's cost $8 billion to train all of OpenAI's models, and then the electricity that it costs to run the queries on a yearly basis could power the nation of Austria for 2 years or something like that. So it is definitely something to consider and does have sustainability implications. But I like this graphic because it shows how machine learning is that subset within artificial intelligence, but then they have that overlap, which is with data science, which is uh, kind of on it's got its own degree plan. People are data scientists. Typically in industry, you'll have data scientists, ML engineers working together to solve business problems, and improve accuracy, decision making, and really get the most out of software and occasionally also hardware to really perform that high level computation, which is really just to solve a problem. And so that brings me to another point: is AI by itself is not, you know, uh, the answer or the solution. It's a really important tool that will solve a business problem or a personal problem, or provide more insight into how one can maybe go about doing that. And the big players in this game, as some of y'all have heard or seen the crazy stock market fluctuations and record highs and record losses on daily basis by players like Nvidia, GPU manufacturer. That was literally the idea for that was started in a Denny's conversation between their CEO and founder. So it's pretty remarkable how NVIDIA has captured that much market share, and it's led to actually a point where OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, AWS, they are all in some form or fashion actually dependent on NVIDIA and have begun making kind of forays into the GPU space in order to, kind of more uh, capture their own future, like the, how to say and where this is going to go. Uh, in order to train your own model or platform, OpenAI, Microsoft, AWS, Google, they've all put in billions of dollars into R&D, actually building these foundational models. And there's a good sized chunk, which is in the other section, um, that consists of smaller name players, actually LLMs that I prefer, like Anthropic Claude, which, in my opinion, has a less robotic or LLM sounding output. It's less prone to using words like in the grand tapestry of human experience, which is blatantly ChatGPT's go-to. Uh, Anthropic also, you can code on it. You can ask it to build an artifact. Code me a simple game of Snake, and you might have to actually go back and forth with it in order to say, no, I want you to do this better, or actually, can you make the controls a little bit more intuitive? Prompt engineering, as it were, play around with it a little bit, but um, in order to achieve that outcome, it'll actually output all the code that you need and then run it as a quote unquote artifact within their UI. Now, the big opportunity for like us normal humans is in the third section, which is services. So, as you can see, there's this 86% chunk of services that is others that has not been captured the same way as you see in data centers, GPUs, models, and platforms. So what that means is that the services is where small businesses, startups, as well as established players like professional services firms like Accenture, consulting businesses, consulting arms like IBM, Cognizant, Deloitte, they're all really cater to enterprise level applications of specifically generative AI. But there's this growing consensus that to solve uh, I guess, less enterprise problems, or even that sweet spot in between small business and enterprise, there's a large portion of the market and services, the other section, that can be captured by even startups that I've seen presenting here at the ION. And you know, models and platform services, models and platforms section, that high. There's actually a couple of startups at the ION that I've seen. One in particular, it's like three grad students at Rice who have developed a compression algorithm for basically making the LLM size something that can be stored on like a mobile device. Uh, Relatively like conceptual still. I think they did like their PhD thesis on this and then productized it. They've been in contact with some of the big players in the model and platform section to see how that can be leveraged in their technology stack. But generative AI is really interesting. It's what most people probably gravitate towards or think of when they hear AI nowadays. It's really a lot more than just generative AI, but this is new, stylish. There's a ton of VC money getting thrown at it. It actually looks a little bit like a bubble, and in some senses, it probably is. But that doesn't mean that we, don't have to take advantage of it, leverage it where we can. We'll get into that in a little bit, but the big challenges regarding the jump that happened when generative AI jumped on the scene, which was through a research paper called "Attention Is All You Need" that happened at Google, but was not properly productized. It was actually taken by the team at OpenAI, turned into GPT, the generative pre-trained transformer, which the transformer model was essentially what that "Attention Is All You Need" paper had specified the architecture for the first time. That kind of big jump got a lot of people thinking somewhat existentially about all the science fiction movies and Terminator-esque scenarios, iRobot kind of plot lines where the AI takes on like a mind of its own and then does something that is scary. So there's this, the lingo, we'll just get to the bottom of that. Artificial narrow intelligence is still primarily what we're dealing with now, which is sophisticated algorithms that are really good at doing one certain thing or a couple certain things. Facial recognition, diagnostics. Even an LLM is still kind of technically ANI or artificial narrow intelligence because it has this mastery over the domain of language. AGI is where all the big players are headed towards, and with this caveat of AGI is good for humanity, and AGI is artificial general intelligence, which is that general problem solver. As humans are general problem solvers, it's basically something that's decided to not be narrow anymore, but it's a more general problem solver across multiple domains. And that is something that has not happened yet. It's still very much hypothetical. It is believed that LLMs may be a component to that, but it's not going to be the only big innovation that contributes and takes us to AGI. So, Sam Altman says there's probably 2 or 3 major innovations, major jumps in capability away from AGI, and they're projecting somewhere around 2027 for that to happen. And at the same time, there's this push within the research and academic community to have some sort of guardrails, right? So alignment, the AGI or AI alignment problem, which is notoriously kind of nebulous because they'll say like, well, what are we trying to align it to? Well, human values, of course. What are human values? Like if I were to ask everyone here to state their values on the count of 3, everyone would probably say different things in the same neighborhood, but we ultimately need to have a conversation and ongoing dialogue to create communities like Pilas to understand what are our values, right? What are the experiences of human beings in marginalized communities that experience systemic circumstances that are not all the same? So it does require this conversation and understanding that Gen AI is not this panacea. It is still prone to hallucinate. There's still that training data bias. Hilariously, there was, I believe it was a Google LLM Gemini that had output like colonist images of like a completely different color. It's like why would it do that? Well, because there's all the data that it's been trained on, and there are not the sufficient guardrails to have the LLM, maybe output that, or in a pre-output layer, look at what it's output and kind of read the rumors. That's whether that's actually something. And then security is a big deal, not just in the AI space, in all the software, in all of technology. We want our devices to be secure. There have been some pretty big hacks and security breaches this year, but that's ultimately something that we're always going to contend with as we move forward. Copyright and IP infringement is like a huge thing with AI, and especially LLMs, because when you train the model with the entire contents of the internet, inherently there are going to be things that are proprietary or are copyrighted that you don't want to train a model with, and a lot of that also has to do with art, and a lot of artists, understandably, are a little bit sussed out at the fact that the creative direction is being given to AI. Let's troubleshoot that. Wonderful. Uh, and it's like, okay, well, if we're using Gen AI to create some beautiful artwork, while that's great and all, it still can't get hands and fingers right, and so there needs to be some better handoff between what a human is actually going to do and when the AI is outputting. Um, Ultimately, I don't think we want to delegate all of our creative endeavors to AI. It's like, I want to be able to paint and play the piano and do these things that make me feel embodied. I'd like the AI to do the dishes, to take out the trash, to kind of it's like, okay, what are our priorities really, and what are we here to live and experience as humans? And then lastly, there's this existential threat to humanity, which just having listened to all the podcasts that I could possibly get my hands on, and even reading research papers and understanding just the general trends of history. While this is always a possibility, and it's good to, I guess, not be too, averse to any existential, risk. We're always going to, need to face what's directly in front of us. Right now in this room, there's no risk of AI or AGI or ASI, artificial superintelligence, that thing that transcends AGI. There's no risk of that ending my life. And if there were, well, I'm not going to be here around to think about it too much longer. So with the existential threat to humanity, there are these select, kind of group of doomsayers who really believe that it's going to kind of take on a mind of its own, and basically like Skynet, destroy everything, and like this idea of the paperclip maximizer, which is like, okay, we want to solve climate change or something like it's like a noble pursuit, a noble problem. Well, humans are the largest contributors to climate change, so a simple solution: eliminate all the humans. Okay, so maybe not. Like that's not the way we should go about it. But with this existential threat to humanity, there is this kind of perennial fear of what we don't understand is scary. As primitive humans, we fear the dark because that's the jungle. Everything that could kill you, eat you, it's there, and it could get you. But also at the same time, we live in like the most secure, safe period of history ever. So it's good to kind of just ground ourselves. Now that we're going to touch some grass or something. So we're on this trajectory. OpenAI has kind of broke this into levels. Level 1, chatbots, been there, done that. Right now, we're probably between levels 2 and 4, if we were to give it a range. So, agents are basically these, we're all actually agents. We're cognitive agents. ChatGPT is a non-human cognitive agent, especially when you integrate it into like Zapier and have it, give it agency outside of GPT to be able to, do something in your business, maintain your operations, whatever you may use it for. So that's all kind of getting into the realm of multi-agent systems, which are really about organization. So that level 5, which is ideally, still an idyllic, not yet realized scenario where, Julian is a business owner and he just has to, talk to his phone to get a complete pulse on everything in his business, a dashboard that can get generated like that off his natural language prompts. And then he just has to, speak some words and then go drink his margarita on the beach. But that's an interesting, I even may say, capitalistic centric view, which is the highest level of AI is going to be for our organizations only. So I have included a link which is 10 stages of artificial intelligence. It's a bit of a rabbit hole, and it's just honestly at the end of the day, it's just words and some nice visuals in that video that show what happens when you get to like a level 10. Transcendent AI, or dare I say godlike AI, which doesn't really care about organizations. It's something much more cosmic in nature. But we have kind of to wrap that all up and summarize, how are we at Pilas actually using AI? So to put it simply, we've created a Pilas GPT, which, just to get a show of hands, how many of y'all have either used a GPT or built your own GPT in the past? Okay, awesome. So it's considerable amount, but less people than before. So we're gonna demo that real quick, but first I want to show and this is what you'll all be getting. So you can take a picture, but the links will only work when we send out the PDF. Some of y'all already know how to build a GPT. But something really creative that I saw, and I was recently on a recruiting trip, and I noticed something I'd never seen before, which was out of like hundreds, probably like 1,000, maybe more resumes that had, passed through my hands. A few of them had like QR codes that would link to like a portfolio or something, but I saw someone that had a QR code that was linked to a GPT on their paper resume, and that immediately, like, I remember that person's name, I remember, what he was wearing, because it jumped out to me that much. So I'm sure everyone here has handed their resume personally to a recruiter or applied to a job. So this is really the takeaway. If you remember nothing else of what I've shared today, you can build your own GPT. You can attach that link to a QR code, and you can paste that on your paper resume. And that's basically how you arrive at an AI-powered paper resume. And I tell you what, your recruiter or whoever the hiring manager is will remember you if you hand them that, and they're able to talk to your AI champion or an AI assistant that knows your resume and your own personal professional background. So, thank you for coming to our talk.
Let's grab one for our industry. It has our Instagram, LinkedIn. We also have a YouTube channel. We'll be posting all of our events, retreats, getting the content out there to just invite the community to come out to our events. That's the goal that we're trying to drive. And then upcoming next week, this is the event that's going to be hosted by Nikita. He's the founder of Original. It's going to be here at the ION. Most likely it's going to be in this room. And so I also have the QR code for that as well. If you guys want to go ahead and scan that, it's going to start at 6 p.m. It's through the Luma. That's where we'll be hosting all of our events. And so everybody from the community that we'll be gathering, they're all using Luma as the event space is invited. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You want to showcase the tech?
I think just based on time, I'd rather take any questions. Yeah, we're at 40, so
yeah.
Questions, comments, anything you would like to know or anything? Yes.
So you had mentioned like you were dabbling with Artifact. Which current LLM are you using as your go-to, like Grok, Llama, like with the different outputs that each of them could possibly give? What is the most reliable one? I don't think there's a reliable one. I like using all, but to your answer for someone who's starting, which one would you encourage them to do without the fear of hallucination or like a direct focus?
Yeah, so in the PDF that we're going to send out, there are some prompting best practices. A slide that has like almost all of the LLMs that you can try with links to them. So, I mean, it really depends, to answer your question on what I'm doing with it. I used to write a lot, just like freelance, like my own kind of, like short stories and content. and I would publish that to Medium. I had used GPT for a while to do that until I found that Claude is actually a better writer. And so I use Claude to kind of structure format outlines and things like that. Um, I use Perplexity quite a bit just because I like it's
Structure.
a different format and structure output. It's more similar to like Google in the sense that it'll give you links as well. It'll cite its sources, and yeah. But I've dabbled around with all that you mentioned. I liked Pi before that was canned. It just had like a very friendly. Like I would show a kid Pi. Like,
Yeah.
Hey,
Just one other part to that question is like, so knowing that each of the models are getting stronger, smarter, like with the mini 4.0 preview, would you say that it's still worth creating a GBT or using OpenAI Playground API and creating your own knowledge base, like essentially your own personal assistant, really your own personal assistant?
Yeah.
What would you say is a better leverage?
Yeah, absolutely. So you have more control with Assistance API and the playground in OpenAI. But as far as no code goes, like without having any prior technical background and creating an LLM where you can drag and drop documents and tell it how you want it to behave, come up with like pre-prompted questions and share with it, build out your own corpus within a simple UX that could take me like 20 minutes, 30 minutes to do. I would say the OpenAI GPTs. If you're developing your own mobile app, right, something separate, building like a larger experience, and maybe you have a little bit of technical background, or you know some people that do know Python or JavaScript and can code, absolutely leverage the OpenAI APIs. That they do cost.
Yeah, I was gonna be like,
And the business model is not sustainable that OpenAI is on. Like they'll burn like $5 billion this year.
my biggest concern at using Claude, because I love Claude. I mean, I just run through my daily usage so
credits.
fast.
Yeah.
Like after like just trying to put together one application or
Yeah.
just one mobile app, it's like, okay, how can I optimize tokenization? How can I optimize like what the repetitive or like the nuances? So like I'm in that stage of like, okay, stop. At one, tell it to stop yapping because it loves to explain.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, um, understanding, especially for people that are just jumping into the world of like creating their own, because you can't be a creator, you cannot not be a creator in today's environment. Everybody's a creator. But point is that having a direct focus on what you're creating and what you're utilizing your tools only as powerful as what you wanted to see with. All right, so I'm in that little bubble of like, okay, I'm paying for X, Y, and Z subscription for a number of us. Which one is the most optimal? I think complexity acquired for me.
Best bang for your buck.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right. Good questions. Appreciate this.
Anyone
Yes,
else?
sir.
Yeah, so you mentioned before that there's a space between small businesses and enterprise level, and even some of the startups here in Pilas was trying to address. Can you talk more about some of those problems that they were trying to address, and if there's like a specific industry that you notice that these startups are trending towards?
Yeah, great question. So, at the intersection of small business and enterprise, you'll find every industry. Specifically, what I've seen here, just being like kind of immersed in this ecosystem, is and it's Houston. Healthcare is like a big deal, right? The largest hospital system. There, Morgan, who's doing sustainability side, he's got a couple friends that are doctors that have been in the medical field, seen like the inefficiencies, and left that, became tech entrepreneurs, and are building a startup called Paradox, which is like a play on the docs. Paradox. And that's basically like helping small clinics as well as trying to get larger enterprise enterprise, hospital systems as customers. But there's like that on ramp that you got to get enough traction with like your smaller clinics, show that value to the doctors, and basically like almost find that on ramp, right? You'll have like a certain number of small businesses right up until the point where maybe you land your first enterprise customer. And Mikita, who's at Bridgeville, this event next week, this will be a lot more probably hands-on. Mikita is someone who runs his own, essentially like a digital consultancy. He does a lot of Zapier integrations, but more than just that. As Julian mentioned, they had collaborated on a project that was all around oil and gas quality check automation. And so what you'll see is that there are a lot of pilot programs that enterprises will take advantage to see if this AI solution, which oftentimes may be the first of its kind in the business, can actually do what it's hyped up and promised to do. And then that's the segue, that pilot program, which could be anywhere between 50 grand to I've seen like $500,000 pilot programs, which is like almost like an implementation. That's like you get your foot in the door, and then the possibilities open.
And you said that he's also addressing issues in the oil and gas industry, right?
Yeah, oil and gas, and
So yeah, that's the space I work in, and I reached out my problem that I was having to Nikita, and he has more of the expertise on that. I've been more focused on the data side, but he's more focused on the AI automation, and so we were able to bridge the gap and come up with a nice solution. So. And so yeah, he's right now he doesn't have a specific niche. He's actually trying to pilot different, basically consult different businesses. But yeah, the doors are open here in Houston. We have a high market, and so there's a lot of good opportunities around.
Yeah, I imagine that with all the oil and gas companies here in Houston, because oil is so volatile, their number one priority is to cut expenses, right? So they're going to try to use AI to cut their expenses at an operation level. So it's like just interesting that he's like trying to have some sort of thing. I'm guessing oil and gas companies trying to come in and sort of like optimize and automate maybe those processes. So yeah.
He brought up a good point. I'm just curious, like when, like he's a business owner, Julian. After he hits his 500 million annual revenue, let's say, when does it become to the point ERPs? That's not Oracle. I'm assuming you've implemented Oracle. When does bespoke automation, bespoke tailoring of technology become a priority as opposed to bringing in consultants, McKinsey, going through this round of, you understand how consulting work, especially Oracle just releasing their AI in their last week in Cloud World. When does that become a piece of history and everybody has a tailored solution amongst them?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think it looks different based on like when these companies were born, right? Like if they're already been kind of grandfathered into a particular stack, then at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what technology stack you're running with, as long as it solves your business problems. Allows you to have operations, streamline them to some capacity. It's cloud-based. You get continual releases over time. But yeah, nowadays you can be a one-person team, and I imagine that for the newer startups, entrepreneurially minded millennials, younger, a lot younger, right? And it seems to be they're not kind of like hampered by the same red tape or technological constraints. Like people will be able to run faster, and I always liken the big companies. It's like a yacht or a cruise ship, and then entrepreneurs are on jet skis. They're much more mobile. Yes, sir.
I sort of so I didn't hear what Pilas was for. So going through your LinkedIn, I got to wonder what are other uses for AI? Like what can my mom use it for? Or what can, because it seems to be just business or creating stuff. But what else? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So, something that, right? Like, imagine you're a kid, like I was, and my mom was a bad cook, Like she put her heart into it. Like I could taste the love in the food, but that's the only thing I could taste because she was just not a good cook. Nowadays, if she were GPT literate, which doesn't take that much, right? It's like you get the app, you access the camera of that, you take a picture of what's in your fridge, and you can type in or speak. I'll put some tasty recipes with that I can put together with these ingredients. That like in a nutshell, right? But I imagine
There's got to be something so that like I live in Sharpstown, right? And all my neighbors, there's apartment buildings everywhere, and I wonder how many people there use AI. 'Cause I use it every day.
yeah.
But I'm wondering how or well what could be a hook,
Yeah.
or something like that too.
Yeah, I think those are continuously coming out. Like the ability now to just have a conversation with it instead of having to type, right? Like one thing is to type, another thing, like a completely different user experience to just speak to it and even say, okay, well, whatever I say to you, repeat back to me in English because I don't know English, I only know Spanish, as a lot of first generation immigrants kind of experience. That could be a game changer as it relates to having a communication with like a landowner or someone that you need to craft an email to, but you're unsure about the language. So, anything really that you can think of as far as language goes. But, you know, we're getting to the point where like the true AI, AGI, and all that stuff, like that's going to be more embodied, right? Like it's AI is going to really see what starts to happen, but, give it a body. But yeah, to your point, though, it's, yes.
So, with all of the innovation of AI, what can professionals do to actually work in this industry? Like, what type of positions are available, skill sets, things that people can learn to be a part of this?
Yeah, so I would say first and foremost, like showing up to events like this, networking, huge, right? I think, and seeking them out, right? So like we've planted a couple more events that are going to be on the horizon. Great opportunities. Connect with folks on LinkedIn. Have a LinkedIn, and really just like don't be afraid of rejection, right? Like it takes a certain amount of thick skin and strength of will and not giving up after you get told no. We're not hiring, or your experience isn't really a fit. There's a ton of free boot camps and really useful learning programs out there that you can find completely for free. Actually, so whenever we send out this presentation, it's got a ton of links in it. We didn't show all of those slides, but what we wanted to do is also leave you with a resource to point you to all of these different areas online, where you can kind of get that boot camp or that certification as low cost as possible.
I know this group's called Code4Y'all, but I just have to ask this. But in an age of infinite leverage, I would say, is it worth still understanding fundamentals of coding versus when you have no coding platforms like Zapier, Make.com? You have these mediums that allow you now to have a knowledge of coding. So do you still think that coding is a vital part of AI?
Yeah, I do, and the reason there's like multiple levels to that, but I mean, first and foremost, the reason why there's so many programming languages is because every inventor of a different programming language had a different idea of what a computer should do, and so it's like the nuances between Python and C or Java are more catered to that vision. We live in a day and age where the ideal programming language for AI might be something that doesn't exist yet. And that's kind of an out there statement, but we won't know until we try. There are AI agents out there like Devin AI that are AI software engineers, basically, right? And so nowadays, a modern software engineer workflow might look like doing some amount of coding, handing that off to their AI software engineer, Devin, using GitHub Copilot, using a variety of different tools, but ultimately it's to solve a business problem, right? And businesses, their technology, their stacks run on software already. So I don't think that part's going away. I don't think that we don't need to learn to code anymore because AI. I think that's made up.
Yeah.
Fake news. Yes, sir.
Well, not only that, but because that's what I do. Right? I write programs with no code. I don't know how to code, so I just use Claude and I use Perplexity. I use Chat and I bounce off each other. But I've come to realize that I need to learn how to at least something because it sends me in circles.
Yeah.
You know, it'll do something. If I just knew how to do that little thing, then I could see the problem instead of having to go spend 6 hours bouncing back and forth between all of them to tell me to fix it.
Absolutely.
You know?
And there is something, to that the logical makeup of any programming language that I think is just it's a good critical thinking skill to have and to build up, even if it's like that, CS 101, that very first intro course. So. Awesome, guys. Well, thanks for coming out today. Thanks for showing up. I hope you found this at least a little bit useful, and we'll definitely be following up to get this information into your hands. All the resources, links, some really, really good YouTube videos I recommend you guys check out. And yeah, if you have any further questions, we're both on LinkedIn. You can reach out anytime. Love to get you connected and help meet your objectives in life. So thank you.